Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL Wire site that, of course, covers your Arizona Cardinals. Episode 6. I don't know why it's so hard for me. Maybe it's because we've had so many episodes. I think we're on 604. Let me verify really quick. Episode 600 something. 604, yes. Episode 604 with my co-host Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, as we have our Cardinals-Chargers Week 7 preview. This is a later show than normal as the Cardinals play on Monday night. So we're recording on a Saturday. Normally, we've already gotten this show off. You know, you've heard it already. It publishes on Friday, but there's a lot of waiting. We actually don't even have the final injury. I guess we normally don't. We normally don't have the final injury report, but we now have the prop bets in hand. Sports books have stuff. Seth, this is a weird week, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, first off, condolences to Darius Robinson, who may or may not have made his debut this week, but he's definitely not going to make his debut now, as his mom passed away, as he posted on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So it sounds like he'll be away from the team this week. So, you know, unfortunate, but bigger things in football, as I always tell my kids too. Like, I'm like, look, there's always things that are more important than football, and family being, you know, the top one. And so that's disappointing in the sense of, like, this kid, you know, first round pick, pulls a calf, probably strains a calf, isn't able to play. And then, you know, unfortunately his mom never actually gets to see him play in the NFL, which is just brutal. I mean,
hard.
And
so, that makes that's so sad. Like, he made it.
Right.
And
so, you know, like I said, bigger things in football sometimes, but this is a game where now we go to, how does this team respond after the ass kicking they took last week? And you know, one of the guys that we were hoping would be here is not, for much more important reasons. And so does this team, I mean, another defensive lineman on the injured reserve, done for the year. Their big free agent signing, or one of their big free agent signings.
Their free agent class is a free agent's class of injuries. Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, Evan Brown,
Jonah Williams.
Yeah. Jonah Williams, my goodness. And
so now you just look at it and you go, what does this team have and what can they do? I mean, this is not what we expected. We were hopeful that this game would be impactful, their one and only primetime matchup of the season, and it is, but for differing reasons now, right?
Yeah. Yes, and this game, interestingly enough, like, it is now for Cardinals fans and for Chargers fans who are local fans, they'll get to see their game. They'll get to see the Cardinals and Chargers play on one of their local stations. Here in Arizona, you can watch it on Fox 10. But for the rest of the country, it's going to be a streaming game only on ESPN Plus, and it's running opposite Ravens Buccaneers, which, by the way, that is a fantastic matchup. Who in their right mind is going to tune into the Cardinals-Chargers game that aren't local fans who don't have to stream it on ESPN Plus to do it?
Degenerates like us, Jess. I mean, you're completely right. Outside of Cardinals-Chargers fans, which are small fan bases, This is the game that you flip over to in commercials at halftime. When the
Now,
game,
granted, the game will still be. You'll get the last quarter and a half in a game of the game when Tampa Baltimore ends. You can flip it over for the last quarter and a half, maybe. But
I mean, we say that, Jess, but I mean, between these two offenses and how much they're going to
on the East Coast, like when I was visiting my daughter in Texas, I didn't realize how weird it was. Monday Night Football didn't finish till after 10 at night.
Yeah, I'm already tired by that time.
Imagine on the East Coast, they're the game kicks off at 8:15. They're getting done at about 11:15. Who on the East Coast is going to go, well, let me go see what the Chargers and Cardinals on? And granted, I know we're spoiled. West Coast sports watching is literally the best. Like I got up this morning, I watched ASU got their butts handed to them by Cincinnati at a 9 a.m. game. There's we're recording while there's a couple of games because today's Saturday schedule is absolutely loaded. So yeah, we're going to try to get through this pretty quick because I'm pretty sure Seth and I want to watch the rest of the games that are on today.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one where we just don't really have a lot that we love this week because this is the matchup from hell for the Arizona Cardinals. And
let's talk about that because we'll talk about the Chargers, the Cardinals with the Chargers coming to town. Let's talk about these Chargers now. Gavino and I were on the show on the last show previewing him, and the fact of the matter, and the two biggest strengths that the Chargers have are two of the biggest weaknesses Cardinals have. The Chargers run the ball a lot. They're not super efficient at running the ball, but they run the ball at a 4.2 yard per attempt clip. That's a little below average in the league, but it's not bad by any means. They're top 10 in yards, top 8. They're number 8 in attempts. And we know the Cardinals don't stop the run. Case in point, let's look at the last 4 games. The Lions, 187. Commanders, 216. 49ers, 153. And the Packers, 179. The Cardinals can't stop the run. And then you've got the Chargers' number 1 defense in terms of points allowed, allowing only 13.2 points a game. And the Cardinals, their offense is supposed to be their strong point, but they're having a time scoring points outside of the first quarter.
Yeah, and you look at it, the biggest strength or the biggest advantage that the Arizona Cardinals would have in this game is their ability to run the football. You mentioned it, that 4.2 yards per attempt is 21st in the NFL for the Chargers offense, but they allow 4.2 yards per attempt on defense, and so
which is 8th.
Yeah, so they're going to, they're going to have to. The Cardinals will have to run the ball against this team. It's funny because it almost feels like this Chargers team is doing, I shouldn't say trying to, they are doing what the Cardinals want to do. They're 32nd in attempts in the NFL in passing. That's last for those of you that are not completely familiar with how many teams are in the NFL. They are last in the NFL in passing attempts. They've attempted 127 passes in their 5 games. They've had their bye week, so they've only played 5 games, which is
just 25 and change per game.
And on top of that, Jess, they've thrown for over 200 yards once this season.
That's wild considering they have Justin Herbert. But at the same time, you look at their roster and they literally have no receivers. They got rid of Keenan Allen. They got rid of Mike Williams. They got rid of their we're used to for the Chargers having a high-powered passing offense. That's kind of literally been dating back to the late 70s. That's kind of been the team's identity dating back to Don Coryell after Coryell left the Cardinals.
Right. And then you look at it and they've got 3 games where they've run the ball pretty well. I mean, 2 games where they ran the ball great. And and then last week they ran the ball okay against the Denver Broncos, but they have 2 games where they're sub 60 or I guess 60 and 55 yards rushing. Jess, like this offense is a baffling situation.
Yes.
And it's just crazy to me that you've got a team that, in their 2 wins to start the season 2-0 in the Jim Harbaugh era, they ran for more yards than they threw for. 176 in game 1 versus 140 passing yards, and then 219 in game 2 versus 130 passing yards. But to be fair, that second game basically doesn't count because that was against the Carolina Panthers, and that's the only team in the NFL that Jess and I would look at each other in the eyes and say, the Arizona Cardinals are winning this game. Like, the Cardinals will beat the Carolina Panthers, but outside of that,
and even that, we're like, will they?
but then you have the Broncos game last week, and I think that's kind of what we're in store for, Jess. I mean, you look at it, the most passing yards this season, 222, but they only ran for 128 yards. The big difference in that game is the turnovers, and the Chargers just don't turn the ball over, Jess. I mean,
their only 2 turnovers are against Carolina when that didn't really matter. They won that game 26-3.
Right.
They haven't turned the ball over in any other game, and they've gotten takeaways in every game. They're not like what the Packers are, but they have 9 takeaways in 5 games, which isn't quite the 14 that the Packers had in 6 games. But
right.
They get the ball. They get after the ball, and from what Gavino Borges told me, it wasn't fluky at all.
No, and then you look at some other things and some numbers. One, J.K. Dobbins is running wild this year. I mean, I know the numbers aren't spectacular in terms of bulk numbers, but 81 attempts for 438 yards. That's 5.4 yards a carry. The problem is he's the only one that's running for anything. His lead backup, Gus Edwards, yes, the same Gus Edwards that was backing up J.K. Dobbins when they were both in Baltimore, has 113 yards on 38 carries. That's 3 yards per carry. Hassan Haskins, one of their, guys that they brought in, he only has 5 carries, 16 yards, 3.2. Kamani Vidal, the rookie, 4 carries, 11 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. So, like, their 4.2 yards per carry is basically that nobody outside of J.K. Dobbins runs the football well. Like, nobody. And it's
right.
Wild because, just the way the Chargers are built is basically what Arizona Cardinals fans have really begged for, right? Like don't be able to do anything but run the football and play good defense, and they're doing that, but at what cost? I mean, you look at it, they have 3 first-round offensive linemen on the team. Joe Alt, obviously the 5th pick in the draft right after Marvin Harrison Jr. They have the name
Slater.
Thank you, Rashawn Slater, the first-round pick from I think 2 years ago, might be 3 years ago, can't remember off the top of my head. And then they have the Zion Johnson, the guard, who I love coming out, who's been pretty okay, not great, but hasn't been bad. And so, you look at it, those are interesting. It's been interesting because that's how they built. And then obviously on the defensive side of the ball, they have a conglomerate of veteran front guys that they've, spent a ton of money on to get. I mean, I don't want to undersell what the defense has done through these games because their defense has been phenomenal, but I mean, their leading sack guys, Khalil Mack at
with 2.5.
Yeah, Joey Bosa.
They'd have 13 sacks in 5 games, so that's not. I'm like
it's not good. We can say that it's fine. It's
right, but at the same time, the Cardinals have 11. So
but also again,
5 of those were against the Rams.
Right. But again, we look at it and we go, well, the Cardinals don't have a good defense. And so for the Chargers to have the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, They're 6th in yards allowed in the NFL, which is good. I mean, top 10 defense. But then you look at who they played. You look at the Raiders. They're a
Raiders not good.
Complete dumpster fire. Carolina Panthers, complete dumpster
Terrible.
fire.
Broncos. The Broncos win is now looking better because the Broncos look somewhat capable.
Yeah, capable. I think that's the best way to put it, Jess. Capable. And that was their best offensive game of the season, the Chargers, that is, game of the season, and one of their worst defensive games of the season, giving up 316 total yards. But they did force the 2 turnovers, and that was kind of the difference in that game. 23-16, Chargers win. But you look at their 2 losses, Jess. They played the Kansas City Chiefs well, and that kind of reminds me of the Cardinals and when they play the Seahawks well, right? Like, even though the Seahawks are clearly the better team, the Cardinals find a way to make it ugly, make it a mess, and then the Seahawks win, and you're like, oh, they're right there, and you're like, nah, really not right there. But yeah.
Well, and it's weird because the Chiefs are a weird team to watch because for some reason they've moved away. They've turned into a team that just figures out how to win games instead of like blowing teams away. They have Patrick Mahomes. They turn the ball over, but their defense is really good now. And so they just grind out wins every week.
And by far, this is Patrick Mahomes' worst season as an NFL quarterback.
Like in terms of quarterback play, but what happens when they need, like when it comes to crunch time and they need a play, when they need the offense to do something, Mahomes does it. But it's like they're dialing it down, like the Spurs a few years ago when they would just kind of ratchet it down for the regular season in the NBA till they got to the postseason. And I don't know if you can do that, but I guess you can try. And the truth is like the thing is what the Chiefs get, because they're the defending champs, is that they have the target on their back every single week. So every team is up to play the Chiefs. You know what the Cardinals never have? They never have any team that's coming in like up to face the Cardinals. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're down. That doesn't mean that they're playing them like a trap game. But like the Cardinals teams don't have to prepare for the Cardinals the way they have to prepare for the Chiefs. But
right.
Yeah,
and you look at it though, the Chiefs seem to be, to your point, ratcheting things up. Heading into the bye last week, they just absolutely blistered the New Orleans Saints, put up 460 yards of offense, only gave up 220. Now again,
I mean, the Broncos also blistered the Saints too.
Yeah, I was going to say the Saints, are
the Saints. Remember how good they looked in weeks 1 and 2?
Yeah.
That
was definitely fool's gold. Right?
Holy cow, that defense! I will say, I was so happy because I hit all 3 of the bets on Thursday night. People are talking about Broncos this one. I'm like, Saints this, Drew Brees. I'm like, no, Broncos are going to win. They're going to blow out. They're going to beat them significantly. I had the over, and and those 2 late scores. I was so happy about that.
Yeah. And so you look at it like they haven't played anybody outside of the Steelers and Chiefs, and they got worked. I mean, they got worked. I mean, 20 points combined in those 2 games. Their defense did good, but was much, much worse in those 2 games than they were in every other game this season. And their offense was non-existent. But let's be fair, the Cardinals don't have the Steelers defense. They don't have the Chiefs defense. And so I think we can safely assume that the Chargers offense will offer a unique issue of the J.K. Dobbins is going to run the football well against this team. I think you're with me. There's a 0% chance he doesn't run the ball well.
There's only one way he doesn't, is if the Cardinals somehow get a 2-score lead early.
Right.
Somehow.
Exactly. And so, but again, to your point, the Chargers don't turn the ball over. So, it becomes this issue of like, how does this all come into play? And there's a couple interesting things to look at in this game. The Chargers defense doesn't sack the quarterback. The Cardinals don't give up sacks on the quarterback very often. But the pass defense is good per se. The thing is they force a lot of interceptions, but the Cardinals don't throw a lot of interceptions. So it's like you have this ultra aggressive defense that likes to fly around, but they do create pressure rates pretty well, but they force turnovers against a very conservative offense that doesn't turn the ball over very often, and they will take what the defense gives them. So it's an interesting juxtaposition overall, because I just think that this team, it's a clash of styles, in the sense that the Cardinals can't stop the run, and obviously the Chargers just want to run the football. As you mentioned earlier, they don't do it particularly efficiently, but damn, they're going to try to continue to do it. And meanwhile, the reality is that the Chargers are a better version already of what the Cardinals wanted to be, which is the incredible thing about this. Like, nobody expected Justin Herbert to be this guy where they have 800. He only has 815 yards passing on 125 attempts.
You know what they look like? Jim Harbaugh put this team together the exact way that he played when he was coaching the 49ers when he had Alex Smith.
Right, exactly. And that's what they're doing. And and then you look at the injury report for them, and it's just absurd. And then you go, doesn't matter. I mean,
no, I don't know if it does. So let's talk about this game. Coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Best of Cardinals talk about. Let's move on and talk about the actual matchup, players we're looking at, keys to the game, and more. That's coming up next on Rise of Sea Red. We're back on the Rise of Sea Red podcast, Best of Cardinals talk on the web, talking about the Cardinals-Chargers game in Week 7, the last game of the week. Monday Night Football starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. here in Arizona at State Farm Stadium. You can stream it on ESPN Plus, but here in Arizona, just turn on Fox 10, unless you want to use streaming. I will say this. I don't mind the broadcast team. Chris Fowler, Dan Orlovsky, Louis Riddick. That's a good group. I know that some people here don't like listen to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, but they're good. But we won't get there will be very little Monday night countdown talk about the Cardinals and Chargers, because that crew will be, in Tampa Bay talking about Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson. And then over here we'll have Cardinals and Chargers. What?
Yeah. So
obviously we've kind of mentioned this thing. So how could the Cardinals win this game?
They have to be able to throw the ball this week. I mean, yes. and that comes down to the entire offense. I mean, look, I understand what they want to do, and I understand that running the ball to set up the pass and the play action is how they get their big plays going. However, like at this point, you have to do a better job of creating opportunities, especially for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride in the passing game, without having to use or utilize play action pass. Like, it just has to be something that's available and that they can do consistently. And without that, I don't know if there's an answer, because the reality is they're not going to be able to run the ball efficiently against this defense. Like, this defense is going to 100% sell out to stop the run and force Kyler Murray and the Cardinals passing game to beat them.
And what we've seen so far this season, if they can't get the running game going with James Conner, they struggle
Right.
a lot.
And so that's what it comes down to in this week. And the Chargers, they're banged up, man. Like, obviously, we don't have the Saturday injury report yet. That'll probably come out that we're recording at 1:30.
It'll probably come out in about an hour.
Yeah. And
about the time we finish the show.
So Joey Bosa, he hasn't.
He's not expected back. Joey's
Right.
not expected back to this week.
The other ones that matter for them, Christian Fulton, one of their corners, and we're just talking about the defense side of the ball, and those are the two that you look at and you go, okay, like that could potentially help the Cardinals, right? Like those are the two, but the reality becomes they need to come in and play at a level that they just haven't played at on offense since really the second half of the 49ers game. And that's the big thing. Khalil Mack's still a terror. He's a fantastic football player, first ballot Hall of Fame guy at this point. I mean, and then the reality is Fulton was their number one corner. I mean, he's played 256 snaps. He's played extremely well. Isn't it ironic, right? That guy gets out of Tennessee and now is really good. And
well, how many times did we suggest that Fulton would or Cardinals fans think, hey, Tennessee, Monty Ossenfort.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And then the other guys that have really made a difference this year for Los Angeles. The other one to watch is Jasir Taylor. He's one of their corners. So again, they could be down 2 corners, which, again, you're not looking to win games based on injuries, but at this point, as an Arizona Cardinals fan, you're just looking to win games, right? Like just win a couple games. And he's been their second best corner. So he's limited. So today will be a big day, whether or not he can go. I would imagine he goes in this one, but it's just one to watch. So that would be, all of that would be positive defensively because the rest of their team is really just, they're fantastic against the run, Jess. I mean, you look at it, Diane Henley, the rookie linebacker.
Puna Ford has been great.
Yeah, Puna Ford's been great. Obviously, Derwin James is very good, but he struggles in coverage, right? So like the rest of their team is borderline elite against the run. and so,
interesting fact that comes across from PFF, their Arizona Cardinals X account, and Chargers in terms of the passing, they have the second highest rate of zone coverage in the NFL, and Murray does well in the passing game against zone coverage. So, but is Drew Petzing going to set things up for that could mean a big thing for Trey McBride, for Greg Dortch. We'll see about Marvin Harrison and Michael Wilson because they tend to use because what the Cardinals tend to do, they use their boundary guys on one-on-ones as opposed to finding spots in zones. That's your Dortch, that's your McBride, that's your Connor in the passing game when they see zone coverage, and they try to take advantage of their height, the height advantage that they've got on the outside and the playmaking skills of Wilson and Harrison on the outside, and that's typically when they get one-on-ones. And so I don't know. I wonder if that will be a detriment to what Harrison and Wilson can do.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, right? And especially if they're down their top 2 corners, then you can attack in a different way because they're the guys that play well in coverage are gone. And so that'll be the biggest thing to watch for. I mean, I really think that they can take advantage this week if those guys are gone. And obviously, like we said, with the pending reality of Bosa not being there as well. I mean, he is just a difference maker. I mean, 3 games and like you said, 2 sacks in 3 games. Like, this dude is a freak of nature still. It's unfortunate he just could never stay healthy consistently, right? Because he's just a guy that makes plays whenever he's on the field. But again, good for the Cardinals. And then on the offensive side of the ball, we know what the reality is, right? Like, they have a very good offensive line that is excellent running the football, and not great throwing the football. Part of that,
they're very well. They don't do it much, and right now, their best receiver is a rookie.
Yeah, and to be fair, when they do it, they don't do it particularly well either, right? Like, they're not. It's just something that hasn't been a focus for them.
No.
And to be fair, when you're running, when you're running the ball and playing great defense, you don't need to worry about it, right? So we'll just see how that all goes. Overall, this is a game where if the Cardinals can find a way to get the passing game going for the first time in 4 weeks or 3 weeks, I don't know,
since the Rams game, really.
Yeah, I mean, they, you look at it, passing yards haven't been great. Since the Rams game, they could potentially put the Chargers on their heels and force them to be out of their comfort zone. But the crazy thing is just that, like, even when the Chargers got absolutely blown out, and blown out is probably a strong word, but when they were beat up by the Steelers in that game, they didn't really care. And that's what's kind of crazy to me, right? Like, and I know Justin Herbert got injured in that game, and that's part of what happened.
But isn't Greg Roman just an older version of Drew Petzing? Because Petzing, right. And I'm starting, like, everyone loves Drew Petzing. I'm like, but is he a little stubborn about the run game?
Oh, 100%. And that's, one of the things. And you look at it, Jess, and it's crazy to look at. The Chargers scored a touchdown with 5:34 left in the first quarter. They kicked a field goal. Okay. They kicked a field goal and went up 10-7 with 10:17 left in the second quarter. And then their next 6 drives went punt, end of the half, punt, 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 punt. And on those drives, Jess, they had a drive of 32 yards in 7 plays. Again, for those that math, that's not great. 7 plays to 32 yards, that's less than 5 yards per play. They had a 3-play negative 5-yard drive. They had a 3-play negative 4-yard drive, a 6-play 23-yard drive. So less than 4 yards per play, and then a 3-play negative 14-yard drive. So, like, they can't.
Well, they don't score in the second half very well either.
No, and I mean, it's probably going to be 0-0 in the second half. Let's be honest. Whatever the halftime score is, there's a good chance that's the end of the game score in this one.
Yeah.
But you look at it, right? Like, the Steelers are. I know the defense is infinitely better than the Cardinals, so I'm not trying to take away from that, but they are a similar team in terms of offense to the Cardinals, with Arthur Smith there, and an athletic quarterback that makes things happen. And I just, I look at this game as a potential to be a game that we see this Cardinals team come out and throw the ball well, get up, and then the Chargers go, we can't throw the ball, so we're just gonna keep running it and see if it works, and then change. The Cardinals are able to, I don't want to say steal a win, because any win in the NFL is great, but, like, put more into this game than we expected them to.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Chargers scored 13 points, or let me check again one more. They scored 16 points in the second half against the Raiders in week 1. They've scored 9 second half points since then. So if the Cardinals can somehow not be down by a touchdown or more before halftime.
Yeah, right.
If they can be tied, if they can have a small lead, the Chargers in the second half have been bad. And not that we can count the Cardinals, but again, the Cardinals have shut out 2 teams in the second half this season and 2 very good teams. So it wouldn't be out of the question. So, I think they have to get back to scoring early. They have to score early. They can't do what they did last week. And take advantage of Trey McBride. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna. I want to say push the boundaries, like attack the boundaries. I don't know if I just don't know if they will. So if they can get Trey McBride early and often, and they're gonna try and be stubborn with the run game, but I don't know. And obviously don't turn the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over, ultimately that's what buried them last week was 3 second half turnovers. And if they can take the ball away, just one, that might be the difference in the game. If they don't turn the ball over and they take the ball away once because of how not great either team is offensively, that might be enough, won't it?
Yeah, and that's what the big deal is here, right? They've got to come out. They've got to put a couple scores on the board, even if it's just 10 points, and you have a chance against this team because, that's not their game. They're not going to try to outscore you. They're going to try to get ahead and hang on to the lead and play good defense. And, I think there is a chance that they can do that this week. It's just you and I are at the point, and I think most fans are, that you want to see this team do it before you buy in again, right?
Right. And would it surprise me if they won? No, because what have we seen after the last 2 times over the last 2 seasons when they've been absolutely demolished? They came out and took care of business and played well. So yeah, I totally expect it, but the matchups are tough. I have you noticed how we don't ever even bring up the matchups on the edge for the Cardinals, because let's face it, Dennis Gardeck and Zaven Collins against Rashawn Slater and and Joe Alt. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. I will say this in terms of Khalil Mack, he lines up mostly on the left side of the offensive line, so it'll be against Paris Johnson, which means Khalil Mack might not be that big of an issue. Now, the interior guys you're going to have to see how that goes, because obviously we got Tristan Colon starting at right guard again. We'll see if Evan Brown can play, or if that ends up being the rookie Isaiah Adams. Kelvin Beachum holding up right tackle. He's been fine overall this season. A couple of knucklehead moves last week. But other than that, coming up next on the Rise of C-Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move on to predictions, picks, and prop bets. It's your favorite part, isn't it? That's coming up next on Rise of C-Red. We're back on the Rise of C-Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. Time to make some predictions, some picks, and some bet picks. You know what's weird? The on BetMGM, the game line has changed. So it started off the week. They were, what was it? The Chargers
minus 2.5 for the Chargers. So Cardinals plus 2.5.
It changed. So when we started the show, when I started recording, it was down to 1.5. It's moved back to 2 points on BetMGM. So it moved within a point. So it went to 1.5 to 2 after it being 2.5. I don't know what happened. I'm guessing that had to do with the news that Marvin Harrison Jr. Was back. And so let's do predictions first. Very interesting look here is that, I saw it earlier that 91% of the handle on BetMGM, I quoted this on the preview show with Gavino, that 91% of the handle on the spread was for the Chargers, while 71% of the bets are on the Chargers on the money line, which is a weird number. And lots of people think that, like 2/3 think it's going to hit the over, which I think is wild.
Yeah, wild is a great way to put it, Jess.
That is wild. No. What's your prediction for this game?
So I went back and I looked, at everything, and it's tough, man. It's hard to buy into this team until they actually start to win, right? Like that's I think that's the biggest thing that we're going to say week to week, and we want to believe in this team. We want to be excited about this team, but this team hasn't shown up in primetime games. This team hasn't shown up consistently, and it just makes you wonder if this is a week that they show up against a team that's incredibly physical, a team that plays hard-nosed defense and likes to run the ball. I have this one going. I have the Cardinals now. So FanDuel still has it plus 1.5. So the Cardinals are, basically 1 point dogs. And I have the Chargers winning 23-21. So I have the Chargers covering and the under hitting, because on FanDuel it's 44.
Yeah, BetMGM, it's a 2-point game. 44 points is the projected total. I have it even lower scoring. I think if both teams are in the 20s, that's a shocker. I think that this will be an ugly, low-scoring game. Would I be surprised if the Cardinals won? No, I can't predict it though. Like that's the thing. I can't predict that. Like if I'm thinking with my heart, yeah, the Cardinals are going to win. No, I can't pick that. You can't. There's nothing. There's no way to predict a Cardinals win unless you're just counting on the bounce back game, because nothing about their on-field play says that they're going to match up well against the Chargers. And so I think the Cardinals will struggle offensively, and I think the Chargers will just not score that much. I've got the Chargers winning this one 20-16. What that means is that the Cardinals get 3 field goals, and they get in the end zone once, but they have to rely on the field goals to kind of stay in the game. And obviously that is the under with 36 points. So let's start looking at, so if we're looking at totals, if we're looking at alternate totals, if I want to go crazy and say under 40, just to give myself, I think it will be, if you get an under 40 bet, that's plus 145 on the alternate total, I would totally take that. It gives you a little bit of play for that. Seth thinks it'll be a slightly lower scoring, slightly higher scoring game. You could move it just a touch, because right now on BetMGM you could slide that from 44 to 43.5, which is, oh wait, you said 23, 21?
Yeah, so that would
never
be 40.
mind. Never mind.
Yeah.
That'd be 44. So never mind. That's not good. But if you want to do now, it doesn't make any sense of money there. So, but if you believe like me that it will be an ugly, low-scoring game, ratchet down the projected total, go on the alternate total, drop it to say 40.5 or 30.5. So at the 39.5. At 39.5, under 39.5, you get plus 150. Under 40, plus 145. Under 40.5, plus 135. Those are really good prices for that. And so if you think it'll be lower scoring, I might hit that line just to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I like that. And it's going to be an interesting one, man, because I just don't know how this team produces more than that, right? Like I think that's the biggest thing that we've said, that we just haven't seen this team produce consistently this year. And so we'll see how it goes, but I'm hopeful. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can say, is that I'm hopeful.
Would you say, hey, this is so J.K. Dobbins, I don't know what is it on FanDuel, but on BetMGM, they've got the line at 79.5 rushing yards for J.K. Dobbins. Hammer that. And if you want to go,
it's 76.5 on FanDuel.
Oh, and what is it? What's the price on that?
Minus 114.
Okay, as it's minus 110 at 79.5, but you can do the alternate at 100 plus at plus 250. And that, against the Cardinals, that seems like a pretty safe bet, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they've taken it off on FanDuel.
Oh.
So there's no alt rushing yards. There's Connor and Murray alt rushing yards, but not Dobbins.
Interesting. What about James Conner? 64.5 is the total, is the projected total that he has on rushing yards. 64.5 at 115, minus 115. You can go up to 75 at plus 140 and up to 100 at plus 380. But I don't know if I even want to touch the 75 plus.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't mess with it. It's interesting because I have zero receiving props for the Chargers. We know Quentin Johnston's hurting.
Oh, we've got Ladd McConkey is listed on Ladd McConkey and J.K. Dobbins are both listed on BetMGM. You can get McConkey for over 52.5 yards, 120, minus 120, and J.K. Dobbins over 14.5 at minus 120. They've got McBride. In fact, that's it. The McBride and Harrison are it for the receiving props. Over 51.5 yards, and Harrison over 50.5 yards.
So they have the entire Cardinals offense. I mean, they have Harrison, McBride, Wilson, Dortch, and Connor on FanDuel. The ones I like this week, I do like both Harrison and McBride to hit their overs. I think it's going to be a concerted effort. I also like Dortch's over. He's only at 20.5. I think that's 3 catches for him. The one that I'm interested in to get your reaction on or your thought on, they do have Justin Herbert's totals, which is interesting that they have all his totals and alts without having any receivers listed, right? It's just wild how these bookmakers do things, man. So his over-under is 196.5. We talked about it. I mean, this team has not tried to throw the ball consistently this year. Justin Herbert, I mean, without sounding ridiculous, he looks like they're treating him almost like a backup quarterback with how they're having him throw the ball. He has one game over 200 yards, and it was the last game. But
what's weird? It's a weird line here that you have one, like, for the straight passing yards, the quarterback props. Oh, it's 196.5 for minus 115, but the alternate for 200 plus is a worse price at minus 135. Someone messed that up.
Yeah, right. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, I don't buy the issue being, obviously, if they run the ball effectively, they may not even try to throw the ball.
Right, exactly.
So that's where you get to. But the thing I do like, Jess, and kind of where I'm going with all this is the Chargers don't run the ball for touchdowns. They tend to let Herbert throw. And his over 1.5 at plus 144.
And you can get that at BetMGM at plus 165.
So I would that's one I like in terms of the Chargers, because we talked about it, 3 rushing touchdowns all year. I mean, this is a team that runs the tar out of the ball, Jess. Very few teams run the ball as much as the Chargers. They have 3 rushing touchdowns all season. They have 6 passing. Like, that's a wild stat to me. So if you get that at plus money, go to BetMGM. I would go. That's where I would go right now, because it's better odds. It's plus 144.
Plus 165 is a crazy number.
Yeah. So I would grab that if I were you guys. That's where I would go. He may only throw the ball 15 times in this game, but 2 of them might be for touchdowns, because that's again, I've just never seen an offense like this. Just like, how are you 8th in rushing attempts and 24th in rushing touchdowns? Like, it literally makes no sense. it's just like, it's almost like they're like, hey, we're not going to run the ball anymore. We're going to let Justin get his touchdowns. So that was the compromise that he made, right? Like, I won't throw for a lot of yards, but I still want to throw for touchdowns.
Yeah, maybe. For an anytime touchdown scorer, let's go for crazy one. The Charger defense special teams plus 600.
I like that. That's an interesting one. The other one I like is to back up kind of what I'm saying. Ladd McConkey, 2+ touchdowns, plus 2,000s. Plus 2,000. So, doesn't have to be a big bet. Dollar wins you 200. Throw something on there. See if you can get something. But I know this is counterintuitive, but this is, a hedge. J.K. Dobbins 3+ touchdowns is plus 2,500. So $1 on each of those, and maybe you're out $2.
That's great. What players to score 3+ touchdowns for J.K. Dobbins is plus 800. So FanDuel guys, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that's how I would look at that. I don't like a ton of other things in this game because I don't have all the Chargers wide receiver props yet. So McConkey is the one I would look at. Let me see if his total receptions. Nope, not up here. Okay. So his receptions is what I would look at. Number of receptions.
Let me pull that up for
yeah, let me know if you've got anything on that one, because that's the one.
Ladd, so it's not a great price. It's over 4.5 at minus 140.
Yeah. So I would look at him. He's got 32 targets, got 19 receptions in 5 games. So he averages about 7 targets a game. Again, Cardinals defense. I would, if over 4.5, I would be comfortable laddering that up to 6 and 7, depending on the numbers. I just don't have them, so I can't give them. So, but that would be my recommendation.
So, in terms of anytime touchdowns this week, I like either Harrison or McBride. I think the Cardinals only score 1 touchdown, and I think it'll go to one of them. You can get McBride at plus 220 and Harrison at plus 150. But yeah, it'd be, Elijah Higgins keeps getting touchdowns. He's got 2 this year. You could get him at plus 750. And let me see, is Zay Jones on there? No, Zay Jones. No, Zay Jones.
But yeah, and I'm looking right now. Higgins is plus 1,100. Anytime,
okay. There you go.
On FanDuel.
That's wild how different the sports books can be.
So let me ask you this one. Trey Benson was a no-show at practice today. Obviously, it's early in the week in the sense that you have it's not Sunday. Is Amari DiMercato at plus 700 worth a look as the number 2 back in this game? Or would you wait to see if Michael Carter gets a price?
I think I'd go DiMercato. There's something about DiMercato that this coaching staff really, really trusts.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some interesting ones this game. I think there's some money to be won out there. The big ones obviously being what we discussed. I don't have any kicking specials this week. I don't know if you do.
There's nothing special I do. You can go with kicking points. Ryland over 6.5 is minus 135. Cameron Dicker is over 7.5 is even money plus 100. But field goals made, and it looks like we both like both teams to kick multiple field goals, but the price isn't great. Ryland's over 1.5 field goals at minus 115, so that's just a basic bet. Dicker is over 1.5 with minus 135, so nothing crazy there. But it's not like when you see over 1.5 at plus 120, you have to take that every time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, it's just one of those situations. I think there's a lot of choices and a lot of good things this week, but it'll be interesting to sit back and watch how this unfolds.
One bet, last one that you can get some plus odds on. J.K. Dobbins alternate rushing and receiving yards. If you get him, you can get 100 plus combined receiving and rushing yards at plus 120.
Oh, I like that. I do like that.
So that's a nice one. And with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise of C-Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. A couple of days later than normal, but we've got the show in. Cardinals play Monday night. We will be back. So you don't have to wait as long for our reaction because we'll record our reaction to the game Tuesday night. So by Wednesday, you will get our reaction to what is ideally a bounce back win, but we'll have to wait and see. Until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Rude. This is the Rise Up C-Red podcast. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up C-Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red Sea Red, and of course, Rise up, Sea Red.
Roll!